There's a quiet enemy that hides not in the salt shaker alone, but in the little jars and colorful bottles that sit on our kitchen shelves. We think of spices as harmless, as the friendly little touches that make a meal sing. Yet for someone with kidney disease, or even those of us over 50 trying to protect our kidneys, they can be like wolves in sheep's clothing. You might think you're doing fine because you don't sprinkle much salt on your food, but meanwhile, hidden sodium, potassium, and phosphorus may be sneaking into your bloodstream with every bite, slowly straining those two fist-sized organs that work night and day to keep you alive. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Vital Science for Seniors. Today we're uncovering the surprising truth about the 5 worst spices for kidney health, and what you can use instead to protect your independence and joy. When I think of salt, I think of my patient, Margaret. She was 72 when I first met her, a retired teacher with a sharp wit and a love for home cooking. She told me proudly, "Doctor, I don't add much salt to my meals anymore. I've been careful." But when we looked at her blood pressure and swelling in her ankles, the story was different. What Margaret didn't realize is what many don't. Most of the sodium we consume doesn't come from the salt shaker at all. It's hiding in canned soups, frozen dinners, and even the bread we butter at breakfast. Salt is more than just a flavor booster. For the kidneys, it's like a relentless storm. Healthy kidneys filter out extra sodium, keeping fluid in balance. But when kidney function begins to weaken, sodium stays trapped in the bloodstream, pulling water with it. This raises blood pressure, swells the legs and hands, and makes the heart pump harder. In fact, research published in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology shows that high sodium intake accelerates kidney decline, creating a vicious cycle. When Margaret cut her sodium closer to the recommended 2,500 milligrams per day, less than 2/3 of a teaspoon, her swelling eased, her breathing improved, and she felt lighter. She told me, "I didn't realize my kidneys were begging me to listen." Salt may look innocent, but for the kidneys, it's the first and fiercest villain. And the trap is that you don't always taste it. That's why reading labels, cooking at home, and leaning on fresh herbs for flavor is one of the greatest gifts you can give your kidneys. It isn't just about eating bland food. It's about giving your body a chance to thrive. A gentleman named Henry once told me, "Doc, I switched from plain salt to garlic salt because I thought it was healthier." He chuckled as if he'd beaten the system. But when we reviewed his lab work, his blood pressure had crept up, and his creatinine levels showed more kidney strain. What Henry didn't know is what so many of us miss. Garlic salt and onion salt aren't clever alternatives at all. They're simply salt in disguise, with just enough flavoring mixed in to make them feel different. In fact, about 90% of what's inside those shakers is still plain sodium chloride. The danger is subtle. Because garlic salt doesn't taste as sharp as table salt, many people sprinkle on more without noticing. That extra sodium builds up silently in the bloodstream, holding on to fluid, pushing up blood pressure, and quietly asking the kidneys to work harder than they can. Over time, this cycle wears down those fragile filters, inching someone closer to dialysis without them realizing it. The saddest part is that garlic and onion themselves are wonderfully kidney-friendly when used fresh or in unsalted powdered form. Fresh garlic brings anti-inflammatory compounds that help protect blood vessels. Onions provide antioxidants that reduce strain on the heart. But the moment they're mixed with salt, all those natural benefits are overshadowed by the sodium load. I told Henry, "You're not wrong for choosing garlic. You're just picking it in the wrong costume." When he switched to fresh cloves, sautéed in olive oil, he was amazed. His meals were fragrant, flavorful, and for the first time, he felt confident he was seasoning his food without sabotaging his kidneys. Sometimes the difference between harm and healing lies in such small, simple choices. When I was a boy, I remember the comforting aroma of soup simmering in my grandmother's kitchen. It seemed simple: water, vegetables, maybe a bone or two. But today, many of us reach for bouillon cubes or stock powders to create that same flavor in minutes. For someone living with kidney disease, though, these little cubes can be like dropping a ticking time bomb into the pot. Let me share the story of Rosa, a 68-year-old who came to me complaining of bone pain and unusual fatigue. She had been diligent about avoiding table salt, but when I asked about her cooking habits, she smiled and said, Doctor, I always add bouillon cubes. They make everything taste better. That was our clue. Those cubes were loaded not only with sodium, but also with phosphorus additives, ingredients that her kidneys could no longer filter properly. Here's why that matters. Sodium, as we've discussed, drives fluid retention and high blood pressure. But phosphorus is another hidden villain. In healthy kidneys, extra phosphorus is filtered away. In weakened kidneys, it builds up in the blood, pulling calcium out of the bones and leaving them brittle, while also hardening arteries and heart valves like cement. A study published in Kidney International revealed that high phosphorus intake in kidney patients sharply increases the risk of heart disease. Rosa's bouillon cubes were delivering over 1,000 milligrams of sodium and a heavy dose of phosphorus in each serving, nearly her entire daily limit in a single bowl of soup. Once she replaced those cubes with homemade broth simmered from onions, carrots, celery, and fresh herbs, her swelling eased, her calcium levels stabilized, and she said, "Doctor, my soup finally tastes alive again." Bouillon cubes may promise convenience, but for kidneys, they carry a hidden price no one can afford. Spice can be exciting. It wakes up a dish and brings warmth to a quiet evening meal. But not all spice is safe. Take chili powder, for instance. Most people imagine it's just ground chili peppers in a jar. In reality, it's usually a mix, a blend of paprika, cayenne, salt, and other fillers. And that blend can be surprisingly unfriendly to the kidneys. I once cared for Daniel, a retired firefighter who loved to cook big pots of chili for his friends. He told me proudly, "Doc, I cut out salt, but I still like my chili powder. It gives life to the stew." When we checked his labs, his potassium levels were creeping higher than safe. High potassium, or hyperkalemia, can be especially dangerous for people with reduced kidney function. It can disrupt the heart's rhythm like static interrupting a steady beat, sometimes with life-threatening consequences. The culprit was his spice jar. Paprika and cayenne, common in chili powder, are naturally high in potassium. Add to that the hidden sodium and preservatives manufacturers often slip in, and it becomes a cocktail of risks. The worst part? Labels rarely list potassium content, so people like Daniel have no idea how much they're taking in. When I explained this, he looked startled. "I thought chili powder was harmless," he said. We swapped his store-bought blends for a homemade mix, just a dash of cumin, coriander, and a pinch of black pepper for heat. The flavor was still bold, but his potassium stabilized, and he could enjoy his meals without fear. Chili powder may look innocent, but for someone trying to protect kidney function, it's a shadowy character hiding in plain sight. Sometimes the danger isn't in what we see, but in what the label doesn't tell us. There's something almost ceremonial about grilling. The smoky air, the sizzling sound of meat hitting the hot surface, the proud sprinkle of a seasoning rub. For many of us, it's a taste of summer, of family, of life well lived. But for the kidneys, those bright jars of steak seasoning and barbecue rubs often spell real trouble. I remember a patient named Charles, a 74-year-old grandfather who loved hosting weekend cookouts. He insisted he hardly ever added salt, but his blood pressure was still stubbornly high, and his legs would swell after every family barbecue. The secret was in his seasoning rub. Those blends are usually heavy with salt, sugar, artificial smoke flavors, and even phosphorus additives to enhance color and texture. Some brands swap regular salt for potassium chloride, marketed as healthier, but for anyone with kidney disease, extra potassium is like pouring sand into a delicate engine. It clogs, disrupts, and eventually brings the whole system to a halt. Charles was shocked when we measured the sodium in just a couple of spoonfuls of his favorite rub. It was more than half his daily safe limit before the meat even touched the grill. Add the phosphorus, and the load on his kidneys doubled. His creatinine levels confirmed the stress. His kidneys were fighting a battle he didn't even know he was fueling. When we worked together to create homemade spice mixes using paprika-free herbs like thyme, rosemary, garlic powder, and black pepper, Charles was amazed. His barbecue still tasted rich and smoky, but his body felt lighter, and his lab work improved. He told me, "Doctor, for the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control, not the bottle on the shelf." Seasonings should bring joy, not danger. For kidney patients, it's not the fire on the grill that hurts. It's the hidden storm in the rub. Garlic has always held a kind of magic in medicine. In ancient times, it was called nature's antibiotic. And even today, science continues to back its healing power. For people with kidney concerns, garlic can be a safe and flavorful ally, as long as we keep it away from the salt shaker. Unlike garlic salt, which is 90% sodium, fresh garlic cloves or unsalted garlic powder bring rich, savory depth without harming kidney balance. I think of Elaine, a 70-year-old widow who loved to cook but felt limited once she was told to follow a diet for kidney disease. She missed flavor in her meals and worried life would taste dull. When I encouraged her to saute fresh garlic in a little olive oil, she called me later and said, "My kitchen smells alive again." Garlic doesn't just bring joy, it carries compounds that help reduce inflammation, support heart health, and strengthen the immune system. For someone managing high creatinine levels, these benefits are like gentle reinforcements for a tired body. Garlic proves you don't have to sacrifice pleasure to protect kidney function. You just have to choose it in its purest form. Onions are one of the quiet heroes of the kitchen. They don't shout for attention, yet without them, most dishes fall flat. For people living with kidney disease, onions bring more than just flavor. They offer real protection. Unlike onion salt, which is little more than sodium in disguise, fresh onions or unsalted onion powder are safe ways to add sweetness and depth without straining fragile kidneys. I recall Maria, a retired teacher who once told me, "Doctor, food feels empty without salt." She looked defeated, as though flavor and health couldn't exist together. We tried something simple, caramelizing onions slowly in a pan until their natural sugars emerged. The result was a golden, rich sweetness that transformed her vegetables and meats. She later said, "It feels like I found flavor again, without the guilt." Onions are rich in antioxidants like quercetin, which support heart health and calm inflammation. Two critical needs for kidney patients. They also add bulk and aroma to meals, allowing less reliance on harmful seasonings. For someone aiming to protect kidney function while keeping meals joyful, onions are more than a garnish. They're a gift. If salt is the villain in kidney health, black pepper is often the overlooked hero. A simple twist of the grinder brings a warm, sharp flavor that brightens almost any dish without loading the body with sodium, potassium, or phosphorus. For kidney patients, that makes it one of the safest and most versatile spices available. I remember George, a retired bus driver who had given up hope that his meals could taste good again. He sighed and told me, "Doctor, everything tastes bland now." I handed him a small pepper grinder and said, "Try this instead." A week later, he returned with a smile, amazed at how a sprinkle of fresh black pepper made his eggs, chicken, and even vegetables feel alive again. Black pepper also does more than season. It contains piperine, a compound shown to aid digestion and improve the absorption of certain nutrients. For people working hard to follow a careful diet for kidney disease, better absorption means getting more benefit from every bite. Safe, flavorful, and health-supporting, black pepper shows us that even the simplest spice can be a powerful ally in protecting kidney function. Basil carries a fragrance that can lift the spirit before it even touches the tongue. For those protecting kidney health, it's a gentle, safe herb that adds freshness without the hidden dangers of sodium, phosphorus, or excess potassium. Unlike heavy seasoning blends, basil whispers flavor instead of shouting it, yet that whisper can transform a meal. One of my patients, Lillian, a 72-year-old gardener, told me she felt heartbroken when she thought her new diet meant losing all joy in food. When I encouraged her to pick fresh basil leaves from her garden and tear them over her pasta and chicken, she later said, "Doctor, it feels like eating summer." The simple act of adding basil reawakened her appetite and her joy. Basil is also rich in antioxidants, which help protect the body from oxidative stress, a hidden burden in kidney disease. Its natural oils support digestion and may even calm inflammation, easing the body's load. Fresh or dried, it blends easily with garlic and onion, creating a symphony of flavor that needs no salt. Basil proves that protecting the kidneys doesn't mean sacrificing delight. It means choosing wisely. So now you've seen how something as small as a spice jar can shape the health of your kidneys in powerful ways. The worst offenders: salt, garlic salt, onion salt, bouillon cubes, chili powder blends, and heavy steak rubs, hide sodium, potassium, and phosphorus that quietly strain the kidneys day after day. But the story doesn't end there. With safe, flavorful allies like garlic, onion, black pepper, and basil, you can still savor food while protecting your health. I'm Dr. Brian, and remember, you are never too old to choose healing. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and I'll see you in the next video.